Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo.
Ready? Right.
And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's January 18th, 2022. Joining me, as always, on the is UC Coaster Cariotti, wearing no Steelers gear this week because that is that.
Nope.
I'm your host, Brock Fleming, and we are going to get into, it's super Wildcard Weekend. I don't know if we want to go right into it or what you want to do, but I'm telling you, this I like the new format. I like the extra week. I like the games. I even trash talked the Monday night, but I loved it. The fact that I had another game to watch. So it was good. We've put out the link, so we may have people calling in tonight, in which case they get in the green room and they can turn their camera off and give us some questions or feedback if they want to. Obviously, we encourage active comments. If you have those, we'll address as many as we can during the show. With the Cap City beats, I think we're still a little bit behind the eight ball and trying to figure out how to get those comments so that we can see with StreamYard and stuff. So we apologize if you are putting comments in that one and we're not getting to them. Then please just let us know and we'll try and figure out the tech on that side. But YouTube and Facebook, we'll have all those questions and comments coming in.
Nice.
Oh, I don't know where you want to go.
Well, there's only one direction to go, pal. I mean, we're going for it's all pigskin today, and there's we were going to talk a little bit of hockey again. The Oilers are a bit of a mess. I know Leon Draisaitl got into it with a reporter, but again, and I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm so out of tune with hockey right now. The Canadiens lost Battle of the Basement. They lost to the Phoenix Coyotes yesterday. They played Dallas tonight. They just hired a new GM who I've never heard of. Apparently, he's a player agent. I've given up. I've stopped. I've tuned out completely. I don't know what to say.
Sorry, I just tuned you out there completely.
Let's get ready. Who's doing the Let's Get Ready to Rumble? Is that Michael Buffer?
I don't know. I can imagine it'd be probably click the term so we can see your face and who's doing it. But
could there not
last night?
You know what? He's so 1998. He is the last guy I would hire as a hype man in pro sports. I mean, he's still got the voice and all that, but apparently that whole Let's Get Ready to Rumble was his brother who patented that, right? There was a bit of a controversy there. There might have been even some litigation with regards to who has the copyright on it, or I don't know.
Is there an issue with that one? Because his brother's got the "Are you ready?" for the UFC.
Yeah, I don't.
Trying to explain to my kids, I'm like, oh, that guy. I'm like, that's kind of fun. I said, do you know how much that guy gets paid every time he says it? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, every time he says it, it's something like, I don't know. It used to be $100,000. Now it's probably more. They're like, what do you mean? They're just words. I
know.
That to them. And anyway, it was good. Hey, it was a pretty good atmosphere. I don't know. You want to start with that game?
I want to start with
the Monday night game. No.
Well, no. Let's start with the week that just passed. Let's go Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll talk about the Rams to finish off before we move on to the upcoming
chronological. Weekend. I like it.
Yeah, Smart. Let's do it. The Saturday games. I think the first game of the that weekend was Saturday. I believe it was the early game, 4 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. It was the Raiders at Cincinnati. Obviously Cincinnati won that game 26-19, which I thought was a little bit closer considering how that game started. I thought that game might have been a little bit bigger margin, but credit to the Raiders for keeping it close. What did you think about that game? Pros and cons as Cincy moves on to Tennessee next week. What did you see from Cincy that was good, bad, and maybe things that they have to work on as they move towards Tennessee?
I got to say the O-line protected Burrows fairly well. Crosby had still a really good game, so I would have liked a little bit more of a game plan to slow him down. So he was, again, they show the pro football focus rankings of each player, when they're showing the lineup now, which is really cool. It kind of shows you where they stack up. But if you notice, the Bengals are very strong on the left side of the line, pretty below average on the right side. Crosby is the only guy who's, in the top 20 probably for his position on the D line. And he's going up always against the right tackle. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get Crosby in an ideal matchup, which they had. Now, again, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more systematic group blocking to take care of him. But overall, I thought that the Bengals gave Burrows enough time to be effective, which he was. I found that Higgins was a little bit off his game that weekend. Luckily, Chase sort of picked it up. But the Bengals looked really good to me overall. I thought, I think they're going to be a pretty decent test for the Titans moving forward this week. But I don't know. I was going for the Bengals because I hadn't seen the Bengals do much in a long time. They had Icky Woods out before the game. Icky Woods is now the refrigerator Woods. He's a big dude. I don't know.
Well, listen, this is not like Icky Woods was 1988, and we're like, now it's easy to say, well, 1990 was bad. Our day, 1990 was like ages ago. I feel so old. Actually, I was having a conversation with a kid the other day about Vince Carter, and he'd never heard of him. I mean, that's, it's crazy.
We're bringing a segue in for that. That's hilarious. Because I just watched the Vince Carter documentary it was on Prime. It was originally Crackle. Watched it. Obviously, pretty good. Very good. At the end of the credits show up the director's Justin Polk. I'm like, Justin Polk? I'm like, that's one of my old teammates at Colgate. Send him a message, say, hey, Justin, just watch your video. Thing's awesome. Whatever. He says, oh, thanks a lot for watching. I'm glad you liked it. I said, yeah, I'm Canadian. Vince Carter is like an icon up here, right? Like what he did for basketball in Canada. And I kind of went off a little bit. And I was just like, you know what? It brought me right back to that. Yeah. And he messaged me today. He's like, it's his unknown fact. He's like, the quarterback who came in right after I graduated, Chris Brown, not the singer, but he was a quarterback at Colgate. Anyway, grew up with Vince Carter, and like his brother was like his best man and his wedding and stuff. Anyway, so Justin has this big connection too. Anyway, it was awesome, but just kind of funny how you're bringing that up. But the fact that somebody doesn't know who Vince Carter is in Canada, that's a shame.
So Vince Carter, 1999, 2000, Icky Woods was 15 years prior to that, or 12 years prior to that. It's crazy how time flies by. But yeah, it was good to see Icky Woods, big man. I've seen him in a couple of commercials actually. But I'll start with Cincy. They started off so well. Like the Chase looked like he was unstoppable the first couple of drives. They were moving the ball really well. And my only concern with Cincy moving forward to next week is they kind of took their foot off the gas. Now, I don't know if that was a little bit of the Raiders making adjustments and maybe playing a little bit of good offense themselves, or just inexperience and not knowing that, hey, you got to keep your foot on the pedal here. Like, if you watch the Buffalo game, which we'll talk about, those you can't let up. And we saw that. We saw the Raiders come down. The Raiders were confusing. We'll talk about them in a second. But I really thought the Bengals, if they could do anything better, it was don't take your foot off the gas, because you just never know in the NFL, and like a 2-touchdown lead can evaporate pretty quickly. So if I'm the Bengals, I try to find a little bit better balance. I don't think they use Mixon enough.
Definitely not.
You mentioned it. I noticed as well that T. Higgins was a little off his game. Thankfully, they had Boyd to cover some of his that provide a secondary receiver to Chase. But Azuma played pretty well. Their tight end, they have a balanced offense. I just thought they took their foot off the pedal for a bit there.
Yeah, and I mean Oakland, the Raiders have they're notorious for having those last second pushes and stuff. So, when you talk about not taking your foot off the gas, you also got to know your opponent and where their strengths are and where they've pulled out these fourth quarter comebacks. And Carr has been really good in the fourth quarter. I mean, he had over 300 yards. But if you do take it off and start playing a little bit more relaxed defense, whatever, the Raiders are going to make you pay. And honestly, the Raiders played pretty well. In the second half, I thought they played a lot better than they did in the first. There was, I don't know, I would have liked to have seen, Jacobs a bit more into the game, establish that. They got a pretty decent line, use that sort of, scheme to set up some more throws for Derek. But when you get down, you're kind of put in that situation. I think that's kind of where the Raiders ended up finding themselves.
Well, let's pivot to the Raiders here. I actually really liked how they finished the game. I thought they played 3 quarters of good football. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not. It's like they do just enough to be in the games, but they have the talent to be much better. And I think, I think that window is closed with that current group. I think that's it. I think they fired Mike Mayock, the GM, so they're, I'm not sure if they're going to want to retain some of his guys. I believe Derek Carr's open season now. So, I mean, there's teams that can use him, the Saints, the Steelers, namely the Colts.
Didn't see him on, because that was something I was going to ask you in terms of Ben. Or at least I was prepared to ask you to see what you thought. And I was looking to see what free agents for quarterbacks were going to be in 2022. And Carr wasn't one of them on the list. I don't think I noticed. Now I could be wrong. I'd have to go. Well,
could be trade. They could trade for him.
Yeah, but there's also, I heard that like Derek Carr is going to make a big, convincing push for Devontae Adams, who's a free agent, to join him in Vegas. And they got a connection there. I can't remember if they played together or if there's something. Anyway, they have a close relationship, and he's already said, like, when he's a free agent, I'm going to try and sweet talk him over, like schmooze him to get over to Vegas. So it'll be interesting to say. Yeah, a Facebook user brought up Russell Wilson. He's exploring options. You know what I mean? Like,
will he want to go to Vegas though? I mean,
it's the guy that would fit well in Pittsburgh. Let's get to that later.
Look, just with the Raiders, there's the talent is there. They have a good running back. They have probably one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL. I love Derek Waller, by the way. I love the person. I love the player. I love everything about that guy. The story. I like Hunter Renfrow. I'm not sure he's a number 1 quite yet. I mean, he's close. But they really missed that burner up the field. Ruggs deserved what he got, but losing him hurt because he actually he took the top off the defenses, at the very least a threat. And as good as Zay Jones played, and Deshaun Jackson I thought played pretty well, but these guys are like band-aids, right? You're not looking to Zay Jones or Deshaun Jackson long term. Those guys are just sort of fill-ins. So they need a secondary receiver. Josh Jacobs played well. Their offensive line will continue to grow. So there's players there. The question is, does the new GM keep these guys? I mean, does he want to build his own system and his own team? And Mike Mayock, I don't think he did a terrible job, but I don't think he was qualified for the position. I'm surprised they hired him actually from the NFL Network. So we'll see what happens with the new GM if they want to bring in his own guys. I mean, we could be looking at Carr taking a hike. Marcus Mariota sitting there as a backup. He could be a starter for a few teams. It's confusing what he's doing back there, actually, but we'll see what happens.
Mayock's one of those guys, though, like if the Raiders are using his draft analysis and player analysis in college for some of their decision-making process, like that was his bread and butter, right? That's what he was doing. He was doing the drafts and the college guys. If you're using that already in some of your rankings or evaluation criteria, then why wouldn't you say, you know what, let's just hire this guy? You know what I mean? Like, we obviously like the information he's giving. We're following some of those tips and how he's doing it. So let's just hire him. And that way we're the only ones getting it. So I'm not, it didn't turn out that great. And that was one thing I wanted to do today too, was put together a list of the guys that actually came in under his watch kind of thing. And just to kind of see where they are. But anyway, he's out. It's a culture change coming through there. Are they going to keep the coach that's the interim coach? Are they going to look for somebody?
He did a great job.
Jim Harbaugh. I heard his name bounced for everything. I don't see that happening. I like the coach they have. I think I already gave them all like notes and stuff after saying like, great season and something about anyway, just something where he's connecting with the players anyway.
He did a great job. So he deserves an opportunity at the very least. So
I just brought up the comment from Mike Ferrer when he talked about some defense alignment. That's a great point. I forgot about that. There was
Trey Hendrickson is back. He'll be back. He practiced today. He'll be back for the game this weekend.
That also affects because they didn't have a rotation moving in that late in that second half.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to get that pressure and rotate their guys in and whatever. And you could tell that it does look like, they're taking their foot off the gas, but I think they're just gassed, period. Some of those D linemen. So they missed some of those the numbers
Yeah, I was thinking more on offense. I thought, you put up, I don't know what they put up in the first half, but it seemed like that they had 17, I think, in the first half.
It was
So
20-13 at halftime.
So they only put up 6 points in the second half. Part of that is the Raiders, controlling the clock a little bit, but part of it also was I thought the Bengals took their foot off the gas, and that's a young team, right? They're learning on the fly here that in the NFL you can't stop. You're not just going to, like, the Raiders aren't just going to roll over at halftime. So Trevor Boyd.
So since the offense has so much potential, in my opinion, if they want to make the Super Bowl in the future, they need to focus on defense, which I agree, but I think they also need to – you can't have such a discrepancy between the left side and right side of your offensive line. You need to even that out. So I think they still need to get and bolster that offensive line because it was horrible a couple of years ago, the last couple of years. It's starting to come back, but they need to find another couple key pieces there to really make that offensive click. They got all the requirements and the skill sets, but they need those big guys to be able to utilize Burrows and the receiving core and Mix and all those guys. So they're missing a couple pieces there.
I don't think they're missing much. I think they're missing a left or right tackle.
Right tackle.
It was a right tackle. They're not missing much, guys. They spent a ton of money on their defense this offseason, a ton of money, and they're vastly improved from the last couple of years, and they're more disciplined. I mean, you remember they had Burfict and Pac-Man Jones and all these idiots. They lost Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap. Those guys are gone. Those guys are gone, and they brought in like Trey Hendrickson's awesome. I mean, they did a good job. They spent wisely, and I think all that's left for them is to solidify their offensive line and maybe find Mixon a little bit of some help as a backup. And then look out. I mean, that team's going to be a headache for the AFC North. Anyways, let's move on to that late game that night, which was, I think I don't know too many people who were disappointed. There's only I only know 2 or 3 Patriots fans.
You know why that is? Because
win.
Tom Brady's gone and they're not winning. Because if Tom Brady was there and they were still winning, you would know that you have probably about 40 Patriot fans and whatever. It seems like everybody's a Patriots fan for the longest time. Anyway, they've moved on. It seems some of them are Brady fans, probably jumped, and I don't know if you saw that meme with all the Patriots fans.
Yeah.
Guys wearing a Mac Jones jersey, and then they lose, and he walks over to light switch and flips it off and on. All of a sudden, he's got the Brady Bucks jersey on, and he's like, "All right, here we go."
Well, let's start with the Patriots. If I'm the Patriots, I'm in trouble. I mean, they not only did they they weren't able to move the ball, but they gave up 47. That's like, hey, we've been hanging our head on our defense. We got everybody back from the COVID year, and then what? And then you got a 4 spot on you. Like, that's big time. No punts, no turnovers, no field goal attempts. They scored a touchdown on every. So it should have been 49, right? They missed 2 extra points, so it was 49-17 essentially. Bills just completely dominated. And if you're the Patriots, you go back and you say, okay, well, I thought we had our defense in check, but that's clearly not the case. 49 points in a playoff game in bad weather. They have a lot of problems right now, and they're going to lose some guys this offseason. So if you're the Patriots, where do you start?
That's a good question. I think you get a new coach.
And we've all lost all our credibility.
All the viewers are down. They're like, what the? Or the green room is just lighting up people. No, I mean, you're established in the front office. Like, none of that stuff is going to be changing. It's really going to be a matter of, I think getting a bit of the confidence back, I think is actually going to be one of the big things, like that. The young guys getting the swagger,
Yeah.
The Patriots for the longest time always had that, the
mental edge.
Yeah. And I think this year, Belichick, I don't know. I think he was working on it. You know what I mean? I think they also exceeded expectations this year. They knew they would be better, but I don't think they were expecting to, to maybe not even make the playoffs with an extra team. Maybe they do, but I just don't know what the expectations were exactly this year. So when you talk about like key pieces, their receiving core is pretty bleak. So that's a spot where I would go. Their run game was pretty good. I like the plethora of backs they have back there. DeAndre Stevenson's a big guy. I think he's going to work himself into even more playing time next year and fit in really well. Their blocking scheme is good, all that kind of stuff. Mac Jones is a good game manager. He does pick up things really quickly, it seems, picks up the offense really quickly, which we've talked about already, that we thought that he might be the most successful one out of the class for at least the first, probably 5 years, really, given the situation he's going into versus Jacksonville and all that kind of stuff. But I find that the receiving core is really, there's nobody there. I mean, Bourne the best receiver they have, like,
and N'Keal Harry,
the Canadian, I don't know, hasn't done a whole lot. So I think that's a spot where they need to kind of focus and get sort of some new blood in there. And, they need a guy, they need a Hunter Renfrow or like a Cooper Kupp or something like that for the style of offense that they run. And if they can land something like that, even really like a Cole Beasley or something like that, like he's a little past his prime, but like he's that kind of receiver. And when you get that, they've started to really work in Hunter Henry from a tight end spot. So tight ends and those shifty little timing slots, that was the bread and butter of their offense for the longest time with Brady. And then that would open up saying, you know what, we got to jump down on these if we want to stop them. If not, they're going to nickel and dime us the whole field. And then he'll take his shot over top. They need a couple of those guys to fit in. So I think that's really the biggest area that they can improve on.
Jonnu Jones, might be safe to say that this was a disappointing year. I mean, he spent a ton of money on the tight ends, right? They wanted to solidify the line, which they did. Really like what they did with their offensive line. They got the two tight ends, Renfrow, Henry, and Jonnu Jones. I didn't hear much of Jones this year. I know he battled some injuries, but you're bang on. I mean, their offensive line is probably one of the best in the NFL. They don't have any weapons. They don't have anybody. Like you mentioned, Bourne and
Myers was the second.
N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers. These guys are pedestrian at best. So if they can get a weapon or two, either free agency or spend some on the draft, because they really don't have to spend any draft capital on offensive line unless they're losing a guy or two. That offensive line was awesome. My issue with the Patriots before this game was definitely not defense. This game is going to have to make them rethink how they play in defense, because Josh Allen was unstoppable. And again, you dropped 49 points in a playoff game. I understand the atmosphere was crazy. I understand Buffalo was pumped, right? This was Buffalo's Super Bowl to a certain degree. They wanted to make a statement, say, hey, this is, and that's a concern. We'll talk about that as we move on to the next week's games. But Buffalo came out and said, we're going to kick your ass. And they did. And they absolutely did. So I was impressed with Buffalo I can't even tell you how good they looked. But if I'm New England, I'm in trouble. You brought back Kyle Van Noy. You had all those guys come back. The linebackers came back. All your secondary is probably one of the best in the NFL. And you got torched. So major concerns there. Was it is it one-off? Is it a freak sort of like, oh, Buffalo just played the perfect game? You got to really look at yourself now and say, what do we got to do here? I mean, they got a couple of guys on their defensive line, another fella, I can't remember his name, but they're holding their spot, but they got run over. Buffalo definitely showed their dominance. And speaking of, I mean, what more can you say about the Bills' performance other than unstoppable? Josh Allen was unstoppable. If he wasn't throwing darts, he was running guys over. I mean, he didn't run out of bounds or slide. He was running through guys. Now, of course, we can talk about how that's maybe at the tail end of his career. That's going to maybe hurt him. And
who cares?
Yeah, right now, who cares? The guy is just a monster. So,
Kelly, at the tail end of his career, if he could have said, you know what, if I had ran another guy or two over in those Super Bowls and had a ring, he'd change it and say, you know what, great. I'll exchange that. But I got to say, I've been Josh Allen's biggest critic. Not his biggest critic, probably, but I've been hard on him.
Yeah, and, sure.
I haven't been sold on him 100%. I'm still not there. I'm getting there. But what he did was was one of the things that was my biggest pet peeves was after he signed the big contract, and people would be like, you got to stay in the pocket a bit more, find those open guys, throw. And it seemed like he was trying to force that too much. And then he would end up getting sacked or trying to like dipsy doodle in the back and lose yardage. What he didn't do during this playoff game was be indecisive. He made a decision and went with it. And I got to say, that was the biggest turning point for me that I had seen him do. So he was ready to throw the ball. He was making his reads better. And if the reads were not there, he wasn't hesitant to run. As soon as it was like, hey, there's a glimpse of like, I'm not throwing the ball, he's gone. He's making positive yards on plays that otherwise during the season, I found like he would try and stretch out too long to try and get this like real big Hail Mary. There's such a discrepancy between regular season NFL games and the way you play in the playoffs. And that's for almost every sport. Like you see hockey's different. You know what I mean? Hockey's different. Basketball is probably different to a point as well.
100%.
It's just different. The intensity there, the mistakes are amplified. And a lot, as we'll see in some of the Sunday, Monday games, there's guys who can't hack that. Josh Allen stepped up and did what he had to do. And that's exactly what I wanted to see, was a guy take control of the game. Yeah, it was 49, but when even early in the game, when he had to, it was downhill. It wasn't being too cute. And either, like you said, he was finding the open guy or throwing some pretty accurate ball, or he was running to be effective in the playoffs. And that's what's going to be the difference maker between Buffalo winning or losing next week in Kansas City and going further, is how he brings that mentality to it. And I was really pleased to see it.
Yep. So Buffalo, I mean, keep running the ball. They committed to the run to a certain degree with Singletary, mainly off tackle, but that's good. What do we got here? Facebook user, are the Bills for real? They are hot and cold. Big playoff win is nice, but they also lost to the Jags in the regular season. You know what? The Jags beat a couple of teams in the regular season to beat the Colts for a playoff spot. So, sometimes sometimes matchups matter, right? Like, there's certain matchups, like the Raptors can't beat the worst team in the league, the Pistons, but they go and beat Milwaukee the next night. Sometimes it's just a matchup thing. They beat KC early in the year as well.
Because he was talking about being up and down and stuff like that. You know what? One of probably the best thing that happened to the Bills was to start off fairly hot, which they did, but to have the Patriots push forward and all of a sudden the Bills found themselves out of the playoffs. I think that was a perfect time for them to sort of have a bit of a wake-up call and say, look, we're not going to coast. What we did last year and all that kind of stuff and the success, we're not just going to naturally build off it. We need to bring a different mentality. And I find that once they were out, the Bills started to really play a little bit more desperate football. You know what I mean? Where it was intensified. They needed to make it. And I think that was actually probably one of the biggest turning points for the Bills and really helped them. I never like those teams like, when Brady, they were undefeated in the regular season and kind of walking through people, then they lose in the Super Bowl because they weren't challenged. They didn't have that, adversity they needed to overcome. And I think the Bills getting that, like, hey, this week we are technically out of the playoffs right now. We better do something. And they better play better. So, hey, I think that actually might be a blessing in disguise. I
think that's also leading up to the what the NFL wanted with this week 17 and an additional team in the playoffs, is that more of these games matter. And the Bills could, in years past, maybe the Bills could have found themselves easily solidifying a playoff spot in week 15 and play nothing for week 16 with this additional team and additional week. Now they're playing, most of these games. The last, there were only a couple of games that didn't matter week 17. So this is a great, it's a great thing. And
it's a great comment. That was from
Drew Pepper. Drewski, Darcy boy.
Okay, let's. Mike put a comment in the back that Derek Carr apparently signed on as a spokesman for Revlon eyeliner. Is that a joke or is that for real? I'm assuming it's a joke.
That's a joke. All righty, let's move on to the Sunday game. The first game of that the Sunday itinerary was the Eagles at the Bucks. It's hard to blame Jalen Hurts. What are you going to do, right? Like it's a tough position, tough place to play. Buccaneers have a pretty good defense, but at halftime, when things aren't going well, and you've got a backup who led the team to a couple of wins towards the end of the season, you pull Jalen Hurts aside. Look, you're our guy. But it's just not working today. Like, we're going to go this way because we want to try and get to the next round. They should have made a move. He was overthrowing guys. He was jittery in the pocket. I thought Minshew could have been at the very least just a little bit more calm in the huddle. You could tell it was too big a situation for Hurts at this juncture. He's done a great job this year. He's their guy. I like him. But for today, for that day, nah.
I don't know. Does Minshew scream a playoff winning?
No. But you're bringing in a relief pitcher. I mean, he's not your starter.
But at that point, you just you bring somebody in during a playoff game, halftime. What was the score halftime?
They had 0. They had 0. Like, you've got nothing to lose.
17-0 at half. 17-0 at half. That's, you get the ball back at the beginning of the second half. Maybe you're down 7. Hurts.
They showed nothing.
Or use his legs a bit more. I mean, the one that he missed, Smith, I think it was, in the end zone, that ended up being picked off right at the end of the half, right? Because they just had a good drive, and if he had hit that ball, that would have been a touchdown with under a minute left in the half, I think, which would have brought it a lot closer. Throws a pick. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish from an organizational perspective. Is Jalen Hurts your guy? Are you moving on with him? Like, is he going to be your guy next year? Then you stay with him and say, we're going with you. If you're not, then you can switch it. You know what I mean? If you're like, look, we're getting him in the season anyway, then you go with Minshew. But if not, Minshew's not your franchise quarterback, he's not the guy that's going to be there for 10 years leading you down to the playoffs. He hasn't shown anything to warrant that. He's a good, filler. He's exciting because he has a mustache and whatever, and wears jorts to the friggin' field. So he's got a personality. That's sure. Fitzy had that too. So you'd have, a couple of successful games and stuff like that. And you think, oh, Fitzpatrick is Fitzmagic and whatever. But if Hurts is your guy, you stick with your guy. If he's not, if you switch it at halftime, that's kind of like, we're moving on from him. That's my take. I just don't think
there's a way to converse it.
There's a way to that game. Then you put Minshew in for the next one. You know what I mean?
No, you
making that decision.
Hey, it's a tough conversation to have, but ultimately at the end of the day, they lost. So it wasn't whether they pulled him or not, or whether he's their guy or not. They basically just said, "Look, you're our guy," even though we haven't shown anything other than that one drive before the half. He was awful, and he again in the pocket. He didn't show a lot of pocket presence. He should have taken off earlier a couple of times. He held onto the ball a couple of times too long. I mean, again, first, second year guy, that's normal. You're going to see that first playoff game. It's a big thing. You're playing for Philly. It's a tough fan base. But I thought Minshew, he played really well a couple of games towards the end of the season. And even if he comes in for the half, and you pull Hurts aside and you say, look, you're our guy next week, win or lose. We're not going to pull a Rob Johnson on you. You're our guy. But right now we got to win a game. And this matchup isn't great for you because Tampa's got a fast defense. So anyway, the game itself was boring. Tampa, there's really what's there to talk about in terms of Tampa? They played good defense. Tom was awesome, actually. Tom was Tom, and he's throwing to nobody. I mean, not even Mike Evans had a good game, but I mean, I couldn't even tell you how these other guys, Tyler Johnson, and who else was on their receiving core. I mean, that wasn't a.
Well, Gronkowski got 5 for 31. Gio Bernard, so he likes to throw to backs. Like a 39. But yeah, Cameron Brate, you got Vaughn, Scotty Miller, Perriman, OJ Howard. We spread it out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Which Perriman is that?
Burchard.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Hey,
one for
Tom will make anybody look good. That's how accurate he is. So we'll see. They've got a tough matchup coming up, but I don't have a whole lot to add to the Buccaneers. I mean, I think they were expected to win. I chose the Eagles actually, but there
was a 8.5 point spread, and actually, if the Eagles had scored one more touchdown and the 2 point because they needed 2 of those, I thought I'd cover the spread late and do it. Yeah, cover the spread, be good to go. But
anyway,
they did not.
So let's get into what I thought was the game of the weekend. Even before it actually kicked off, the 49ers at the Cowboys. 49ers, like I was commenting on our page during the day, that the 49ers, I didn't realize they had 25 guys left over from the Super Bowl team. And I don't care what anyone says. You make the Super Bowl, you're pretty good. And if you can bring back half of the roster in today's era of free agency, I mean, that's a winning DNA that you've got in your locker room. They got healthy. They, I think, found their identity again, which was, run, play action. That's Jimmy's MO. You're not going to sit Jimmy back there and have him throw it 50 times. It's just not your offense, right?
I need a clip of Kramer just talking to Jimmy or whatever, or the guy. Oh, Jimmy doesn't fit.
But hey, that's his thing. And, everyone's on Jimmy for always throwing that one bad interception. You know what? You're going to take it. He's going to throw one bad one every game. It's just the time of the game that he throws it. And, the situation of where you are in the field, all that good stuff. But all in all, the Niners are good. Deebo Samuel is like a bigger version of Tyreek Hill, it feels like. He's just that guy is all over the field. So you got a good, solid run game. You've got a good offensive line. You got my favorite tight end in the NFL, all-time tight end. I love George Kittle. And then you got some receivers who can make plays. That Ayuk guy is really good. So you've got him and Deebo Samuel. You got some weapons on there. That team's going to be tough. And where are they going next week? Are they going into Green Bay? They're the ones?
Yeah, they're going to Green Bay.
So I'm going to give, before we, dump on the Cowboys, which is easy to do considering how that game ended, I want to give all the credit to the Niners because for the most part, they dominated that game.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I mean, I can disagree with Jimmy. What was he? 172, 16-25 for 172, an interception.
A bad interception too.
Yeah, like nothing.
Yeah, that's not good.
Like that's going to be a sticking point because what's going to happen, just like they did in the Super Bowl, they are going to make Jimmy throw the ball 40 times, 50 times a game and say, you're the one that's going to win the Super Bowl or lose the Super Bowl. My bet is that you're going to cost us the Super Bowl. And that's what they did last time. Now, it is a very creative run system, and it's awesome to watch. It really, when it's a playoff game and from an O-lineman's perspective and you're watching it, like they are extremely creative with how they get the ball. Deebo is a running back in a wide receiver's kind of frame, but he is awesome to watch. But Jimmy is the Achilles heel of the 49ers offensive. And, as they go, these schemes are going to be there to make sure that he throws the ball. So, can the Packers stop the run enough to make Jimmy have to throw the ball and say, you know what, Jimmy, you're going to go. I'm going to say Jimmy as many times as I can. Jimmy, you're going to go play up against Aaron and see which one's going to throw further and keep the ball moving. My odds are on Aaron Rodgers. But, again, I just have – from a 49er, if I was a 49er fan, I would not be very confident in Jimmy G's abilities. That being said, who knows how long he's there for? Is Trey Lance the answer? I don't know, but can't be any worse. I like how the Niners are constructed. So that team is built. They can win any way. They can well, maybe not throw the ball 50 times, but they can stop you on defense. They play the pass really well. They play the run really well. They get after the quarterback. They're lucky to get out of that. Bosa got a concussion,
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's going to be back or not next week, but that's a big loss.
Yeah, that hit was ugly too. It was like his head snapped back there. It wasn't a pretty one.
And it was on a teammate.
On a teammate, yeah.
I mean, if he's not there next week, that's a huge loss. That's also why I think Dallas started getting a bit of a second wing. Dak started to stop having Bosa in his face all the time, but Bosa was just running ransack over some, historically good offensive linemen. Maybe they're starting to show their age a bit, but
Well, he was on Lyle Collins most of the game, I think, and that's a tough matchup for Collins. He's an older guy. Tyron Smith was on the other side. But let's address the elephant in the room. Dallas Cowboys. I think I don't know too many people that picked the Niners. Actually, I do know a handful of people within the UC picked the Niners, but everybody thought the Cowboys were, more talented and going in with all this, and they've got, all the wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb and Wilson and Amari Cooper, and you got the 2 running backs, you got the big offensive line, Zach Martin, one of the best tackle guards in the NFL. Penalties killed them. 14 penalties, and they were all timely. And when they were making their run towards the end of the game, where they had an opportunity to get the ball back, we've got Randy Gregory with the stupid hands to the face or whatever it was. Actually, he held and tackled a lineman.
Oh, yeah, on a pull. The guy
on a pull.
Tackle.
I mean, what are you doing?
Ottawa's own Neville Gallimore,
right?
Hands to the face,
right? Which is a tough one because that's a tough penalty. But the one on Gregory, I thought was pointless. What are you doing? I get that you got to run through the lineman, but you're grabbing him and tackling him
he's trying to make sure he doesn't get up to the linebackers, and sometimes they hold with her, but I've never seen like a that way.
So
all these penalties, they were penalized a lot, but
yeah.
You watch the penalties; those are all penalties, and they're not even close to being non-calls.
Yep.
It's let them play, ref. No, these are
penalties.
Yeah, full penalties. So, there's, you can't blame it on the refs. The whole the ref should have been up there faster, whatever. Watch the play. It's funny.
The last play.
You call a quarterback draw and then blame the ref on it. One, I don't think a quarterback draw goes if it's a field goal. You're trying to get in field goal position or something like that. I don't know, maybe. But the back judge is usually 10 to 12 yards behind the play anyway. And then you say you're just gonna boom, drop, and go and expect this middle-aged ref, to be as fast as Dak and get his butt down there at the same time. He's also not watching Dak as much as he is watching for holding calls and hands to the face and all those other things that are happening. That's not his responsibility. And then he sprinted down as fast as he could, but everybody's like, he should have been faster. He should have been. Come on. That's the kind of stuff where I'm just like,
I didn't like the call.
Any excuse, that's fine.
I didn't like the call. I didn't like when you're at that juncture. That's a risk, and all you're really leaving yourself is. I mean, they could have had 2 shots at the end zone from wherever they were there.
It was about the 40.
Yeah, the best they were doing there was basically spike it, and you got one chance. So I don't know. I didn't necessarily you throw to the end zone with all the athletes that they had. I mean, you can get an interference penalty. There's lots of things that can happen. I didn't like the call above all else, above the fact that the referee and the umpire had to touch the ball. I get all that stuff. I just didn't like the call. I didn't like that the risk reward was just, it didn't make sense for me. So, I mean, is that on McCarthy or is that on the Kellen Moore, who supposedly is this new guru genius offensive guy? When meanwhile you've got Eric Bieniemy, who hasn't sniffed a coaching.
Writing this down to make sure that I bring that up when you start.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I do get it. I think we all know what's going on, but we'll talk about that some other day. But anyway, I just thought. There's one African American coach in the NFL right now. One.
Two.
Who's the second guy?
Saleh.
Oh, I don't think he's. I'm not sure he's African American, my friend.
I don't know. He's
the NFL. The NFL. There was an article saying there's currently only one African American coach in the NFL. Obviously, it's Mike Tomlin. Maybe he definitely looks a lot like a little bit darker than I am. But anyway, all that to say, I don't know what's going on. But let's stick to the football game. That could be a whole other conversation. But Cowboys, I mean, they've already said they want to retain Mike McCarthy. What do you think about the Cowboys? And is it coaching? Is it just a bad decision? What do you think?
I mean, penalties are generally, as much as it's not the coach making the penalties, it's a culture thing too, right? And the Cowboys were penalized. It's not just this game; they were penalized quite a bit throughout the season, and it's kind of on the coach to establish a culture and consequences for the penalties. And really, you know what I mean? Like Belichick is not going to stand for teams that have that many penalties. You know what I mean? He's going to deal with it. McCarthy is a little bit too. I don't know. I want to say too loose or whatever it happens to be. Like, he's just not the guy. I think they need a better, more disciplined coach on there. It's not Kellen Winslow or whatever. Kellen Winslow. It's not Kellen Winslow either, but it's not Kellen Moore.
No.
as the guy for that. Like they need somebody different than that.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing. I'm not a big McCarthy fan. Like he had some success in Green Bay and stuff, but I just feel like he's just not that guy.
I
don't know.
You know what? He's one of those. When he was in Green Bay, he had Aaron Rodgers and they had Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings, and they had some talent there. Really good offensive line. I don't know what kind of leader of men he is overall. So the jury's out. I mean, I think Dallas is a tough place to coach any way you slice it because of the owner. Discipline. Yeah, whoever wrote that, you're absolutely right. It was completely discipline because on paper, I thought Dallas was a better team. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. And if I'm the Cowboys, I don't blow it up quite yet. But you definitely consider maybe some coaching changes or some philosophical changes and right that ship because you got all the parts are there, right? The parts are there to have a Super Bowl championship type caliber team. All the young guys on defense and all the weapons on offense. It doesn't make this score doesn't make a lot of sense. But kudos to the Niners. I want to give them the credit. They won the game. Yep. Penalties aside, they won the game. They went out and they took the game. So good for them.
A couple of key things I'd say for this one. I think the Cowboys need to trade Zeke.
I agree 100%.
Get as much as you can for him.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard is
very good
in my books.
Yep.
In my opinion. Trade him, get what you can for him. I'm not sure about Dak. Yeah, he's probably locked in for too much, whatever. But Zeke is a guy you got to go. I just didn't feel like he even brought any hunger to that. And then just an interesting stat. Kaepernick's been away from the game for 4 years, and he has more playoff victories than Dak and Tony Romo combined still. Anyway.
I saw that.
All right.
It reminded me of just if we're talking stats and sports, the Timo Meyer scored 5 goals last night for the San Jose Sharks, and he scored 5 goals in a game. The Habs' leading scorer for the season has 7. So it's kind of that one of those things. But these droughts, it'll end. Cowboys fans, I don't know too many of them. Scott Endicott being the one. Hang in there. You got all the talent in the world. I'm with you with Zeke though.
Yeah. Get rid of Zeke. Beat it.
Yeah, Mike, for sure. We're going to get to that right now.
Yeah.
We just have one more game to oversee, and we won't spend any time on that. Real quickly, just the Kansas City Chiefs dismantled the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, we had that first sack where, the strip sack or whatever, I can't remember, it was a fumble snap, maybe where TJ Watt took it in for a score. It was 7-0. I honestly got excited because, hey, we scored a touchdown. We're actually winning, but never in my heart did I think we're going to win this game. When you
wanted to see Ben throw one more touchdown, you needed to see him do something.
I wasn't expecting anything. I actually thought, okay, when they forced Kansas City to punt on their first 2 possessions, I said, if you don't score a touchdown here offensively, you forcing Kansas City to punt, which is rare, and you can't even get a field goal. I mean, they were in big trouble when they couldn't capitalize on those first 2, like 3 and outs or whatever Kansas City put up. So, they scored the 7 on defense. That's nice. And then all of a sudden it was like Andy Reid was being nice. He's like, you know what? It's time to unleash Tyreek Hill. And I remember they made it was like a 25-yard out, 25-yard pass towards the sideline to Hill. And he kind of wiggled and juked, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then it just blew up. And before I literally went to the bathroom, I came back down, it was 21-7. So I'm like, this is trouble. So, Kansas City, they just too much firepower. And it was one team beating another team. And the one team who won was the better team. Like overall, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. There wasn't a position on the field where Pittsburgh was better. Maybe TJ Watt, and that's pretty much it. So all the credit to the Kansas City Chiefs. Pittsburgh was listless. They've been all year. They're tough to watch on offense. It's tough to watch them play offense. And Deontay Johnson, I mean, how this guy is considered a WR1, I have no idea. And I've been saying it all year, Brock. I sound like a broken record. He's got drops. He doesn't complete routes. He's just his body language. If the ball doesn't come to him, or if the ball's overthrown, he'll turn and he'll flail his arms. It's Ben Roethlisberger back there, bud. He's making you. You got 100 receptions because of him. I'm sick of him being considered as a wide receiver 1. I hope Pittsburgh reconsiders. Claypool at least has the size to, you can do some other things with him. If you want to keep him and work with him, that's fine. But, Deontay Johnson, give me a break. Give me a break. Anyway, congratulations to the Chiefs. That's a good team over there. I mean, that's a good team.
It's true. But
it's a good team.
I like the Chiefs. But Jackson Mahomes now makes me despise the Chiefs.
I can't even talk about him without laughing.
No, I can't. And I'm in the process of legally changing my son's name because of it.
Love you, Jackie boy. All right. I don't know. I have nothing else to add. Happy trails to Ben Roethlisberger. He's clearly retiring. He hasn't officially said it yet, but great career, Hall of Fame career, 2 Super Bowls, 3 appearances, and not one single season in 18 years where they were below 500. That's remarkable. So kudos to him. I mean, how many offensive lines did he have to go through? How many players? How many personnel changes? And all in all, never worse than 8-8. You got to give the man some credit.
Yeah. Hey. Sure.
Yeah.
No. I mean, whatever. And Ben left his mark on it. I'm really curious for the offseason. I want to know with the draft. I want to know what the process is. Is Dwayne Haskins going to be your guy? Are you getting somebody else?
Hey,
I'll look at the draft and see who might be a good fit, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, all things we can look at as we move on with the offseason. But it's
Mike Tomlin
totally different for you next season.
Mike Tomlin had a press conference today, and he was asked that question, and he said, everything's on the table. So they asked him, are you going to draft? Are you going to look to get a veteran guy in here while you still have this window? He said, everything's on the table, including Rudolph and Haskins battling out if they happen to not be able to find. And he was really he praised Dwayne Haskins for his hard work, and he likes Haskins. And I liked Haskins in the preseason. He's mobile. He's got a good arm. He worked hard all year. So we'll see what happens. I suspect they'll check in with guys like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers when the season's over, and we'll see what happens there. If they could bring in a veteran guy and solidify the offensive line, who knows?
The thing with you bringing those guys in, you need to be ready and say, we're just missing this. You talk about the receivers in Pittsburgh. Those aren't attracting either of those guys to come and play there. So
definitely not.
It's not going to be just a quarterback plug and play. So I don't think Pittsburgh's really that super attractive for guys like that are really looking to chase that next ring and get a couple more before they retire. They're not ready for that. Anyway, those are all discussions we can have later. I think it's really going to be a new building thing for this.
Yeah. And it's exciting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
The last game, Monday night.
All right. Yeah. Another stinker.
It was a stinker. I mean, Kyler Murray played as bad, I think, as I've ever seen. A quarterback who had higher expectations and was a key player all season. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Everything I said that Josh Allen was doing well, Kyler Murray did exactly the opposite. He wasn't decisive. He wasn't throwing the ball when he was supposed to. When he started running, he didn't even commit to the run. He was trying to shuffle past somebody and dink, stuff that Josh Allen had done in the past, which would drive me nuts. Kyler Murray was doing everything, and he just couldn't even shake it. I mean, you throw the shortest pick six in NFL history of 3 yards.
Yeah.
Long or whatever, picks it up and catches it. Do you know who had the longest one?
James Harrison.
No.
Yeah.
No. It happened last year. Actually, it was tied
in the playoffs.
101 yards. 2 of them have 101 yards. One was George Teague. Back in the
Packers.
Right. Yeah, Packers and Lions. But there's one happened last year.
I must be thinking just Super Bowl. That's what I'm thinking. You got me. Who was it last year?
It's Teron Johnson from the Bills versus the Ravens in 20.
Right.
101
Great
yards.
pick. That was awesome.
Okay. Just checking.
Very good.
Make sure I had that. Hey, shout out to Matt Stafford.
First playoff win.
He wins a playoff game. I saw that clip. They showed the longest. I don't know if you saw it too. We probably shared the same thing. The longest unedited clip or uncut clip in NFL films history, which is the one where he was against the Browns at home and he got clobbered for a touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
Broke his collarbone or something like that. And then he came back in. Anyway, just, I don't know. I know he's a Georgia Bulldog, but I feel for him. He did everything he could in Detroit. So I was really happy to see him get a win last night. Cam Akers looked really good too.
That was his first playoff win. It was also OBJ's first playoff win, and I got to give credit where credit is due. He's fit in the last 3-4 weeks, and I thought his coming out party was against Baltimore. They were on the road a couple weeks ago. OBJ has been good, and he hasn't been like demonstrative either. Like he's been good, and finally we're seeing some of his talents. And I think they're using him the right way though too, right? It helps that he has some weaponry on the other side, but like they're using him how they should use him. Hook routes, shorter routes. I mean, he doesn't run the deep routes as well as he used to. So I just like the way they're using him. And he threw for a touchdown, which I thought was kind of cool. And
threw for a touchdown? I saw him
no, I don't know. Was it a touchdown? No, he threw a pass. It may not have been a touchdown, but it was a great play.
Yeah. He had more yards. Like he threw a 40-yard pass. He had more yards at that point in the game than
Murray.
He had, yeah.
Yeah, so kudos to them. The Rams on defense, I think we're starting to see what they envisioned when they brought in Von Miller, and now they got Eric Weddle back there. The 37-year-old vet comes out of retirement for the playoffs. Not too shabby, eh? So that's a nice team they've got. They can rush.
Raheem Morris, man, their DC is doing some fun things out there. But he's got a lot of toys to play with.
Sure, another guy who should get another coaching sniff. I mean, I don't think he got the sort of a raw end of the deal there. So there's some great coaching candidates. We're seeing these coordinators, but I got nothing else to add. That was an awful game to watch. I almost fell asleep. But the Rams, if the Rams and Niners win the NFC Championship with two teams from the NFC West,
but make the NFC Championship, then teams from the NFC West would be in there. That's correct.
Yeah, which would be when was the last time that happened? Seattle in the NFC West? Seattle and Niners a couple years ago?
Can it actually happen, or is it just because of the new format, because there's extra teams that it work? You know what I mean? Like it may not have been even systematically possible for it to happen.
Maybe, yeah. Well, Rams look good.
That was brought up that how cool it would be if Tomlin invited Kaepernick to try out.
You know what? Like I was saying a couple of years ago that they should have brought him in as a backup. The year that Roethlisberger got hurt, they went with Mason Rudolph. But Kaepernick was like, again, he took a team to the Super Bowl, and then he got the raw end of the deal when San Francisco started to rebuild after that team. They lost Anquan Bola and a few of those guys. I think he sort of got the short end of the stick there. I think that window's closed. I'm not sure if Kaepernick is now an NFL quarterback anymore. The years have gone by. I mean, he might be able to come back, and Jeff Garcia did it at a later age. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But let's move on to this week's games. We're running out of time here. We were going to do an express show. That didn't happen. That never happens. But let's talk about the matchups coming up this weekend. We've got 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday.
Can I don't know if I can see it. I was going to try the second camera look, but I figured I wouldn't.
I got the schedule here.
Something that didn't work. So if you have the actual times, that's great. So there we go. Producer Mike is in the back, and he's got us all set up.
Has he got it?
Saturday at 4:30. It's right on the screen now.
Ah, boy. Is that producer Mike doing that?
Producer Mike back there.
You just earned your pay for the week, kid. The check may bounce, but anyway, hopefully it doesn't.
Just add a 0. You earned it.
I might have the wrong address as well. All right. Bengals at Titans, 4:30. Wow.
Let's just hold on a second. I know we're trying to get through this. That's fine.
From last week.
To point out, now you can't see. Oh, yeah, you can't see the bottom here. The records are pick records.
All right, let's go.
Producer Mike, not only is Producer Mike picking up the slack in the back and really upping his game, kind of Matt Stafford style, but he's got a 5-1 record in the picks and is leading us. I'm at 4-2 at number 2, and P-Dog and fact checker Curtis are stuck at 3-3. Now Curtis is in Costa Rica, so I don't think we're going to get his picks today. So he's going to get let off easy, but the 3 of us are going to do that. So
listen, and I'm a week 3-3 because I took the Chiefs. I would normally have taken my Steelers, so I could have been easily 2-4.
So Titans are -3.5.
Wow. I'm gonna take the Titans and them to cover. I don't like the Bengals on the road for this game. If the roles were reversed, I'd say maybe, but they're at home. Derrick Henry's back in town. They're rested, and their defense Henry's healthy. They're rested, and their front 4 is going to cause some serious problems for the Cincinnati Bengals. So, Bengals fans, you're there. You're not quite there yet. Specifically, the second half of the Raiders game, and now moving on to Tennessee. I got Tennessee covering.
Tennessee covers. Producer Mike says Tennessee covers, although I'm trying to get him on the screen if he wants to.
Okay.
And I think, oh man,
it's a tough matchup. It's tough, but on the road, there's producer Mike. I listen. I can't afford you. You're going to price yourself out of the market if you keep doing this good work.
I get this banner. That's enough for me.
Okay.
It works. It works. We went with the orange today too. I don't know. I think it's tough for no, screw it. I'm going with the Bengals.
Okay. All right.
Got to be
Good
a little
call.
bit different here.
I like it. Game 2, producer Mike. Who we got the late game?
It's Packers hosting 49ers.
49ers.
Oof. You know, I just my heart says 49ers, but logically, I think the Packers at home. Aaron Rodgers, you know, they've had 2 weeks to prepare. I'm going to go with Green Bay.
Packers, it's 5.5.
I don't think they cover, but I think Green Bay. I'm taking Green Bay.
I got the Packers too. Mike has to go with the Packers. He's a Packers fan.
So we're all on the cheeseheads.
You hate betting on your team.
I do.
That way, either you lose this stupid thing, which means nothing, and you're still happy, or you consolation prize as well. At least I picked them.
But I'm gonna park my preference, and I'm gonna say Green Bay. Actually, I'm a little disappointed with the spread that they're not favored more. But yeah, so I'm taking Green Bay to cover.
Okay.
All right.
We're moving on to Sunday.
Early game Sunday. Is that the Bills and the Chiefs?
No, they're the late game.
It's got to be prime time. Yeah.
Rams at Bucks, 3:00.
Oh, it's that. So that's these Rams guys are going to be used to. It's going to be like a 12:00 game for them, which kind of sucks. But the Bucks are favored by 3.
No, I'm going Rams. I think the Rams win this based on what I saw. If they can play anywhere like they played against the Arizona Cardinals, I think the Rams win, and I think we see. I think we see some real serious problems in Tampa Bay. I think we see like some talk about maybe Tom Brady retiring after this. I think this is the kind of game that if the Rams dominate, can really we'll all start questioning what happens next year with Tom.
Okay, I think Pep said the exact same thing. Wildcard weekend.
Well, yeah. The Bucks didn't lose, but had they lost,
they
will just like roll it back. Another one.
Yeah.
This is a whole different beast, though, my friends. I think the Rams can really bring the heat. Yeah, and Christian Wirfs might be out. You know, he's on a walking boot, and you know he's going to be a game time decision.
Yeah, that's actually one of the keys to that because their Rams D line is just ridiculous. If you can stop the run and get those guys pin their ears back, it's going to be a nightmare. And Brady is historically bad with guys with pressure in his face. Aaron Donald's the best in the business. He should be watching himself too. He's gotten some fist fights during the game against the Cardinals, and the last thing you need is an Aaron Donald to be suspended. So
imagine.
Get your head out of your butt there, Aaron Donald. My name is Pierre if you're looking for me. Anyway.
He always does that to me.
Also, Von Miller looked 5 years younger.
They're fresh. Awesome. They knew what was going on. They've kept these guys. I don't think they didn't overwork Von Miller during the regular season. They knew that they needed these guys for the playoffs. They were definitely going to make the playoffs. I don't think Fournette's back.
From a big bruiser type back, like he's
make a difference.
But I like Cam Akers. Like to me, he's a big difference maker too for the Rams. Like he's a totally different back. So now you're talking about a backfield in LA that's better with Akers and Michelle. You know what I mean?
Yep. Anyway, I think the key is the pressure up front, like you said.
Yep.
Are you going Rams, Mike?
I'm taking Rams. Yep, to cover.
Are we all on the Rams too?
Yeah.
Woof. Okay. And then the late game. Oh my God.
Buffalo.
Oh man. You know, you brought up a good point about the Bills and consistency, and we talked about like it felt like that was their Super Bowl last week. You know, they came out, the fans were going nuts, the energy was high. I got to take Kansas City this week because these teams are so evenly matched only because they have the championship pedigree right now, and they still have the Bills number, and it's at home. It's going to be a wild, ruckus crowd. The key to them obviously winning is stopping Josh Allen's feet, because I think they could stop the pass. I actually do think they can stop the pass. It's going to be cold probably.
The line is KC minus 2.5.
I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one, and it breaks my heart because I know a lot of great friends of mine who are Bills fans, but I just saw, what I saw last week was just an unstoppable offense on both sides, actually. But
I'm taking the Bills. The Bills are going to go into KC. It's going to be a little chilly, and the Bills are going to walk in there, and they're going to be like, "This is like T-shirt weather. We're in somewhere hot." They've been used to playing in Buffalo, so this is going to be wonderful for them. And Josh Allen is going to look over, and he's going to see Jackson Mahomes doing his TikTok or whatever, and he's going to say,
"No,
let's go!" And hopefully, he gets as fired up as I do, because man, I would be taking sideline shots every time I could. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm losing my balance."
I want to clarify something. I'm taking the Chiefs because I think they'll win, but I'm cheering for the Bills hard, and I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too. And fact checker Curtis is in Costa Rica right now, and he's probably listening. And the Pep curse has been put on KC right here. The Pep curse. Mike, who you got? 5-1, Mike.
I'm making my prediction. The same reason I took the Rams is the reason I'm going to take the Bills. They're peaking at the right time, and I think they're going to ride that to a win on Sunday.
All right. The picks are in, and we will not have a tie next weekend, that's for sure. So I go on my own for the Bengals. Pep goes on his own for KC. And then the NFC, we seem to be all in agreement of where that's going to go. Hopefully we're right. I usually put my money where my marker is. So hopefully we'll be able to afford dinner the next day. Anyway, on that, again, we went a little bit long. Super Wildcard Weekend is awesome. Football playoffs are awesome. I hope everybody enjoys themselves. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with, Pep?
Not really. Keep an eye on some wheeling and dealing in the NBA. Trade deadline approaches. We'll see what the Raptors do or don't do, because they're sitting at 20-18 right now, which is a decent record. And there's all kinds of chatter coming out of Indiana and them blowing up their team. And there's some nice pieces on that team. So, if you want to chime, if you're a Raptors fan, you want to chime in and say who would you give up on the Raptors? Who would you give up to get some quality players in return? I'd be curious to know. Was that Mike? Sorry, I missed that last one.
Mike said they owe the Chiefs a punch in the face from last year.
They certainly do, my friend. They certainly do. And Jackson Mahomes would be the first in line, hopefully.
He's
a goof.
Punch me in the face. Screams it. Producer Mike, as always, that was wonderful. I appreciate the banners. That's even better.
Can't afford you.
We're going out to a song that was number 1 on September 19th, 2004. Do you know why I picked that date, Pep?
No, I don't.
That was Ben Roethlisberger's first NFL football game.
Nice, buddy. Nice.
Be nice, everybody. Have
Good
fun.
night.
Enjoy sports. We'll see you guys next week.
Picking out a basket of fruit. Yeah, freaking Petey, love you too. You know how I do.
Young girl, but I'm not just a young girl, baby. This is what I'm looking for. Sexy, independent, gonna spend it, type that's getting started. Not being too dramatic, that's the way I gotta have it. I bet you want the goodies, bet you got a body that you are hot and bothered. Because I talk around and looking for the goodies, keep on looking 'cause they stay in the jar. Just because you travel things, I'm not going home with you. You won't get no nookie or the cookies. I'm no rookie. I'm sexy, independent. I ain't waiting, so you already know. I'm not being too dramatic. That's the way I gotta have it. No need for flick, try to hate, but I'm not done. I'm not being too dramatic. That's just how I gotta have it. I bet you want the goodies, bet you got a body that you are hot and bothered. Because I talk around
still got million tones. Slow down, little one. We ain't got